Hello. Don't say the bunnies, says I, Cadarev. Hello. I'm running Transistor. Timer doesn't start when the Transistor starts talking now. Will start once I will actually give you the countdown. So
Hey, Red.
let's do
We're not
that.
gonna get away with this, are we?
That will be once I draw out the Transistor out of this body that has totally no relevance to the story. Anyways, 3, 2, 1, go. So yeah, this is Transistor. You might recognize the presentation / art style a bit. So this was the second game by Supergiant Games of Hades fame. You may see some similarities to it, but gameplay-wise it is a bit different. So the main gimmick of this game is that it has two different combat systems. The one you already saw, which was the action part, which is just real time, but there's also this turn-based-ish kind of combat system, where at the top you now have a bar that you drain by planning out certain actions, like your skills. And the downside of that, while it's obviously very powerful, since you can do a lot of actions in a row, the downside is that you have to wait until that bar fills up again before you can do any other actions. So you're very much on a cooldown after you perform one of these turns. That's what they're actually called. So yeah, for speedrunning purposes, the combat applications of that turn mode is not very significant, with one major exception. But we will use it a lot for skips, and that's where like the two main categories of this game come in. So there is any percent, which is what I'm running, and there is low percent, which so far the routes would be the same, but after this fight the routes would start to differ. And right now we're in the tutorial area, obviously, so we're still gaining new skills. So far I only had 2, now I'm getting the third one. But after this fight, or once we get this skill here, in low percent you would now skip the rest of the tutorial, while in any percent we actually go on and complete the rest of it, which is a bit counterintuitive. Because why would you not skip something in any percent? So the idea of any percent is that we gain a very powerful skill as early as possible before the first major boss. And skipping the rest of the tutorial will not net us enough XP to gain that skill before that point in the run. So that's why, while we don't skip as many fights as possible, it will like benefit us by us getting that skill, which will be called load, and trust me, once I get it, you will get to see it a lot. Anyway, so far I only have 3 skills. The first one on my hotbar basically weakens the enemy, it's very close range. Second one is a very long range attack that deals a lot of damage. Third one is basically my pew pew skill that's very short wind up and cooldown, but very low damage. So its application's also a bit limited, but later on it will become more useful. This is the fourth and probably most important skill. Has no combat applications, but it's called Jaunt, and it lets us zip forward, and as you might expect, that's the most useful or the fastest way of movement. So you will get to see and hear that skill quite a lot. Has a very, let's say, memorable sound effect. So yeah, just completing the last, well, this was not the last, but second to last fight. We get a level up here. So on every level up you also get a new skill, or you can choose between 2 skills which one you want to keep. This one really is not significant at all, like you can choose whatever there, it doesn't really matter. And this will now be the last fight in the tutorial. You notice that so far we basically completed everything in the real-time battle system. Again, that's just faster, because then we don't have to wait for our turn cooldown to complete before we can get rid of the last enemies. Nice. Yeah, the gimmick with these enemies is they turn into these white cells, and if you don't collect them within 10 seconds, they respawn, which I failed to do there. Obviously just for demonstration purposes. Hello, Warren. Same. And that's the tutorial. Anyways. So yeah. A bit about the story of this game. So you may have noticed, so far it's only our sword that is talking to us. So we're playing as Red, who's this red-headed singer. The main issue she's facing right now is A, her boyfriend got killed, and B, she doesn't have a voice anymore, which is somewhat limiting when you're a singer. So they got basically ambushed by a secret camaraderie of 4 people that tried to take over the city, not the world yet. What they did is they employed the services of an alien entity called the Process, but somehow they failed to account for the possibility that they cannot control them, which indeed happened. So now the alien entity is running wild and they're nowhere to be seen, and we're getting attacked, and that's not good. So now we're trying to hunt them down. And yeah, I am aware that I am wielding a sword, and this is a shooter-based marathon. Don't worry about it. As you already saw, our sword is magic and it can shoot projectiles, so all good. Probably shooting more projectiles in this run than in most of my actual shooter runs. Anyways, so again, this is where low percent would skip all of these fights with some actually pretty complex setups from time to time. We're opting to actually complete these fights because of the experience we gain. So at the end of this level, we will face the first boss, and until then we want to reach the next level. Because then we gain the load skill, and load basically summons a bomb, and once that bomb gets damaged, it explodes and deals a ton of damage to enemies only, which is just making it better. I should jump there, yes. So yeah, these are the packages that the load skill summons, so that's what I will be able to do soonish, once I get rid of this creep. Good enemy names, I know. So here we get load, that's the yellow skill, and now on these checkpoints or save points you can equip skills. That's what I do. Hope you're wearing comfortable shoes. Here comes a pretty interesting skip. So I now have to like dual wield keyboard and controller. So you will see me using jaunt a lot, and I will kind of run away from the camera. Don't worry about it. I also kind of have to count the jaunts, because obviously I don't know really, I can't see where I am, so hopefully I don't mess that up. I might have messed it up. Maybe? Never mind, we did it. So what you're supposed to do there is one more fight up ahead, and then you go down this like long aisle towards this huge empty set. It's called the empty set. It's kind of a theater stage, which you briefly see in this beautiful cutscene here. So this is technically where we are right now. This is also again like showing you kind of the backstory of the game. So obviously that's Red, singer, and soon you will see her getting ambushed and her boyfriend rescuing her basically, or saving her by dying. These are the evil people that are not very friendly towards us. But yeah, what we did there is with the jaunt skill, jaunt allows you basically to either skip through walls or through level boundaries sometimes. And yeah, so there is some collision outside of the visible level there, and by doing very precise or well set inputs, we always get to the level end trigger there, which then brings us to this first boss fight that I mentioned a few times. So since we're playing any percent, we have load, so the bomb skill, and that is immensely useful in this boss fight because it allows us to one-shot the boss in each one of the 3 stages it's in. So with each stage, the HP the boss has increases, and they summon different enemies. which is not really a problem until the third stage, because in the third stage they summon an enemy that tends to shield them. And depending on where they summon them, like if they summon them close by, we might not be able to sneak in an attack or the bomb trigger before they get shielded. So we'll see about that. But yeah, in low percent, you don't have this skill for the entirety of the run, and it's quite painful to fight this boss in low percent. Let's see how painful it will be in any percent. So that's Sybil. Once our friend, now not so much anymore. That's stage 1. Yeah, that's probably not gonna work. Yeah, that sucks. Oh well, that's fine. I exploded the bomb slightly too early there. Kind of anticipated that she would still spawn in, but didn't quite happen that way. But yeah, anyways. Patience. Second phase and third one. There we go, that should work depending on whether she gets shielded quickly now. No, all good, yeah. Didn't get to spawn the enemies, that's good. So yeah, Sybil was once our friend, but she turned out to be a member of the Camarada, which is the 4 people that are like the secret brotherhood / sisterhood of city dominators. And yeah, that was the first boss. 3 remaining out of the 4 people. You also noticed we can't skip cutscenes in this game. That's regrettable as a speedrunner, but luckily the cutscenes are very nicely done and also have some pretty good music, as does the game in general, so it's one of the cases where I don't really mind not being able to skip them. So again, here you see the 4 people, 4 antagonists. Now it's 3. And this next level will show quite a variety of skips. So, as already mentioned or showed, with the jaunt skill, we can go out of bounds or break level boundaries rather, not easily, but consistently. There are quite a few applications for that. And I'll show you quite a few more now. So basically the first one, I will go through a door, and if I mash turn fast enough and get off a jaunt, the fight barriers, or the collision should not spawn in correctly. This is the door. Okay, yeah, so you can see that the fight started, but now I can just like go through the barrier there. And like there is no collision, so I can just go straight to the level end. Since the first fight is still active, none of the other fights start, and that's a very, very quick level there. In the second one, we will now use jaunt to enter a fight, but like kind of not enter it. So the fight will start, but the fight barrier will not pop up, which is obviously helpful to us. There we go. So you can hear the fight start, you can also see it obviously, but yeah, none of the other fights really start. But we have to deal with this fight, otherwise the rest of the level wouldn't load correctly, or the camera wouldn't follow us pretty much. But this is a very quick fight with load, as you can see, just 2 loads, and those guys are done. So now we can just make our way further down the level. We will automatically get dropped into a fight once we go to the next elevator. There's nothing we can really do to avoid that once we're there. But by not moving with the keyboard, like not moving our character except with jaunt, the enemies will also not start moving. So we can like get a head start by moving right down there. And now I'm already next to the enemies, which is very helpful. So I can try to hit as many of them as possible there. That's that. Level 4, which is actually already the second to last level that we gained. So there we gained a skill that allows us to summon a pet, which will not be relevant until the final boss fight. And there's one more skip in this level, which is again jaunt related. So by lining up somewhat precisely here and jaunting over here, we just completely jaunted past the fight trigger. And that's that. Next we're going to High Rise, which is actually Red's home district. Not that it has any significance past that. First thing we'll do is we'll get onto this elevator. That always, like, there is always a fight here. It's somewhat of an auto-scroller. Like, obviously the elevator will not stop until we get rid of all of the enemies. Luckily, they always spawn in the same pattern. So once you memorize it, it's very free. Not so much in low percent because you don't have load again, but in any percent it's really easy. As long as you like collect the cells, so these white things, quickly enough, so that they don't spawn any new enemies. It's just basically waiting until the enemies spawn in and then blow up the bomb in the face, and that's it. Next I'll do a similar skip to what I did at the end of the previous level, so I'll again try to enter but not enter a fight. So we'll start the fight, but the fight barriers shouldn't pop up, hopefully. And I'll do that by going around the corner here-ish. And jaunting there, so you can hear the fight started. There's also a doggo coming after us, don't worry about it. Or I guess not coming after us, it's just gonna go somewhere. And since that fight is still considered as active, we can now just go to the end of the level again. Obviously you can see there would be another fight here, but the fight barriers don't spawn. So we're just making our way further down the level. There is a very interesting skip you can do here. Like, perspective-wise, this makes no sense. We like kind of just jaunted through 2 levels of that staircase. I don't know. It's pretty funny how that works out. And that brings us to the next semi-boss-ish, kind of. Need to get my controller ready again. You might expect some out-of-bounds jaunting, which you would be correct if you were to assume that. So the idea is, we want to... So there is this boss that will start attacking us in like 20 seconds maybe. It's called the Spine. It just periodically starts to attack us and we can't really deal damage to it. But we want to turn it into an advantage. So whenever you reach 0 HP and you do not have to wait for a turn cooldown, the game will automatically place you in the turn mode, so in the turn-based mode. So we actually want to take some damage here. The reason for that is when we have an OVC screen open, which is a screen you get on these like optional terminals that usually just tell you more about the world. Can I make it in time? Ish, I think. Okay, yeah, so now I can actually move while this screen is up. And the good thing about that is... Did that work? That did work, yeah. So whenever you cancel out of an OVC screen, you can immediately start to turn. And I'm not supposed to be able to activate turn while in a forced movement transition, like when I go through a staircase or an elevator or something like that. And by closing the OVC screen, I actually was able to do that. And since I don't really have collision during these transition states, I now can maintain that state and just go to the boss fight here. So past all of this would be a lot of fun to do, trust me, but sadly we don't get to do that. So yeah, the camera will get stuck here now, soon, and that's where my controller will hopefully come in handy. So if I were to jaunt here with keyboard, I would always jaunt towards the my mouse cursor, which I also obviously can't place outside of the window, so that's why I can use my controller. Okay, trigger the fight, and here we are. Now, some interesting side effect here is that we become invincible, which is very useful. Also, we get pushed around out of bounds, which is not useful, but interesting. And that's that. So in low percent, we actually skip everything here, including the boss fight. And for once, we don't do this here because we want XP. Like, we already hit the XP threshold we wanted. But to skip the spine fight as well, you actually need to do A, a longer setup, and B, in one of the previous levels, I would have to set up something else as well, which combined basically comes out to the same time spent whether you do the boss fight or not. So it's not really worth it so far. Maybe like super duper slightly, but nothing to be really concerned about. So yeah, that's that. Is the spine done? And with that, we continue on to bracket towers. So remember those 4 evil people? Well, technically 3 now. So we were basically able to track 2 of them down, which should be in this next area. Turns out they don't really want us to visit them, so they kind of locked the big gate that would lead us to them with 2 seals. Pesky. So we need to get rid of those 2 seals. And as it turns out, you can disable the seals by going into each one of these 2 towers. So we will go to the left first. And you can see one of the seals there at the right, top right corner, the big gate. So this is the first tower. Safety safe there. Again, completely jaunt past the fight trigger there. This one we can't avoid since it automatically places you in a fight once you exit the elevator there. And now we just need to finish this fight, which is a bit annoying because it's like a very large arena here and you have to go to all these side areas to clear out all the enemies. So for every fight you need to clear out all the enemies, which takes a while here, but such is life. It's that. And here we do another pretty cool skip. So here I can turn on turn. And by activating the OBC screen while near a launch pad, I now can move while having that open. And then I can close it during that jump. And now I maintain the bouncing pad speed while I'm also able to move around out of bounds, which allows me to go immediately to the end of the level, hit the switch here, which disables the first seal. And then with the elevator we go back down. So now you can see in the top right corner, that seal is now green, so we deactivated it. The other one is still up, so that's why we go into this tower here. See what these guys have in store for us. Here is where we will do our first save queue. So you can queue up interacting with a save point. And then in turn, you can queue up a whole lot of jaunts. So now I activated the checkpoint, but I carried it basically into this fight, which allows me to save in a fight, which you are usually not able to. And reloading my save now obviously despawned that fight. But it's technically still considered to be going on, so I can also completely ignore these guys, since the fight barriers don't spawn. That's a technique we will use a bit more often. Oh, Bunny reappeared. Nice. Yeah, so the thing with Bunny Cam is the horizontal extent of the webcam that we can have is not very wide. So since my enclosure is rather spacious, you might not get to see them too often, since they probably will just leave the Bunny Cam extent again. But I'm trying my best. I should not have done that. Oh god, I feel. How did this work now? Can I do that again? So I actually need to unequip almost all of my skills there. No, I can't. Okay. Interesting. Oh, maybe I can't. Let's skip now. Whatever. The idea was to actually unequip all of my skills except for Jaunt, which is a non-combat skill. Once I enter the next level, I'm actually dropped immediately into a fight. But if you only have Jaunt in your hotbar, actually as a fail-safe, that fight would not spawn. But it doesn't really matter in any percent, because we would have to re-equip our We would have to re-equip our combat skills anyways after that, so it doesn't really matter too much. This save will now not spawn for some reason, so yeah, I guess we will not do that, but that doesn't matter too much. It's fine. Oh, Warren. Anyways, so yeah, here are 2 more of the Camerata. Turns out they didn't want to face us. So that makes 1 member of the Camerata. Also, technically, it would be fastest to play this in Chinese. As you might expect or suspect, less characters to complete a text, which only really comes into play once later on, where we actually have to wait out one of those terminals to like fill out the entire text box. But it saves like a few seconds, so wouldn't want to rob you of this immense immersive experience here by having you not being able to read the text. So this is basically the turnaround point in the story. So from now on we will revisit all the areas we previously visited. You might be able to recognize some of them. They will look a bit different now though. Yeah, here just as a summary, there were 4 members and now there will be 1 member. Thank you. Yeah, so that's the goal of the rest of the run/game, is finding Royce here. And discuss what happened. Maybe slightly forcefully. Anyway, so yeah, this is where I was supposed to not get a fight. Now I will get a fight. Oh well. But yeah, again, in any percent is not that significant. In low percent, you obviously have to do it, because low percent is defined as getting as little experience as possible. So basically, skipping as many fights as possible. Level 5 doesn't really matter what you take here, none of these skills really matter. What does matter is that we got a passive skill slot there. So every skill in this game you can use in one of 3 ways. You can use it as an active skill, so one of these big squares down here, which basically determines the main function of your skill. You can use it as a secondary skill, which is one of these smaller squares underneath the big squares, which powers up the main functions. Or you can use a skill as a passive skill, which is the little square on the left side of my skill bar, which I just unlocked. What that does is it just gives you a passive bonus depending on the skill. For example, if I would have the number 1 skill in the passive slot, it would give me a shield. That's why you take the safety save there. So this is another fight skip here we're trying to get by jaunting into a precise point on the upper wall, but sometimes Red takes an extra step there. Now she doesn't. Good. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, since you can use each skill in 3 different ways, or in one of 3 different slots, it actually opens up a vast number of different builds you can play this game with, which is actually pretty cool. It goes a lot deeper than what this speedrun makes it look like. Yeah, this speedrun is very straightforward when it comes to combat, since we just abuse the load skill, number 2. But there are a lot of different builds you can run, so definitely worth to play around with a bit. Anyways, so this is the area I got to after my first bike ride. Except now it's completely consumed by the alien entity, so it looks a bit different. Making our way still further backwards. There is our bike. And here the tutorial fight for the last enemy type starts. So these are called men, which is actually a pretty apt description of that enemy. They're the endgame type of enemies we will face. Thing about men is, A, they have a projectile that speeds up the longer it travels, that deals quite the significant amount of damage. But more so, each type of men gives all other men in that fight passive buffs. So one of them, for example, can make the other one stealth, which makes them invulnerable and invisible. But yeah, that's not the problematic part. They like gain health over time, stuff like that. So as soon as you take one of the men out, all of those that specific passive buff from that man also doesn't apply to the others anymore. Which is why we sometimes prioritize certain men in those fights over others. Anyways, with that said, we now arrive at the tutorial area. So this is where we started our bike ride. Now we're back here. Not to get wiped out like all his bike friends. Yes. This is where we gained the jaunt skill. This is where the enemy, for some reason, just turns around and runs away from us, which gives us ample of time to prepare 4 bombs, which one-shots him. Which is very nice of them. And this is where we learned the Spark number 3 skill. Maybe you remember there was this corpse here that we, just around here, that we gained our skill from, and then just before that we crossed this bridge, which we will now do in reverse, except it's a lot whiter in the background. And this is where we had our very, very, very first fight in the turn tutorial. Now we have a fight against 2 men. We use a setup for these guys, because you can see one of them is stealth, which means both of them are stealth, and then you miss the bomb trigger for some reason. Okay. So much for the precise setup. Let's see if I can salvage this. I can. What is he doing? Hello? What? Sir? I'm very confused. Oh boy. Okay. Please. Did he actually bait me? What? Okay, that should be fine. Thank you. Yeah, that's why men fights can be very problematic. One misplay and you have to improvise quite heavily. So this is technically the last member of the Camarada talking to us via proxy here. So our movement is locked right now. I have to wait out this conversation. Interestingly, in low percent we skip this, but again it requires such a convoluted setup that it's actually just faster in 8% to do the man fight and talk to him, compared to setting all of that up and then skipping to the end of the level. Why am I not jaunting? I don't know. Anyway, so this is the terminal I was talking about earlier. This is the one where Chinese would actually help you out quite a bit, because you will see now that it takes a while in Chinese would have already been done with this. That's the only reason to play in Chinese. And with that we enter Fair View, which is the final area of the game. Let's see. Basically there will just be ideally 2 more men fight and 2 more fight skips, and then the final boss. Maybe there won't be. We'll see. Also spooky, not really spooky, but interesting thing happening here. Oh no, we're upside down, that's terrible. Oh no, everything's alright again. So yeah, here's the first man fight, can't skip this, you're dropped into it. I'm hoping for the left one to attack first. Okay, never mind. But yeah, the left one is the one that causes stealth, so I want to definitely take him out first. Can I please hit the bomb? Thank you. And that's that. Here we have another save queuing. So I queue up using this save point and then jaunt into the fight, which allows me to save in the fight. Actually, why am I can't do that? And now I can reload the checkpoint. And no more fight barrier. Small cutscene here, and then the last man fight. This time against 3 of them. Very creative, I know. But I think this one actually doesn't have a stealth man. It's just like health regen and other fun things like that. Any hitters? Any not survivors, please? Oh my god, please, thank you. Alright, that was the last fight before the final boss fight, hopefully. Assuming I get the remaining fight skips. What's the quota of bunnies on bunny camp so far? I was not able to pay attention. Right now it doesn't look too good. Anyways. 2 more skips. 1 here, this is like super free. Just jaunt to the right there and bypass the fight trigger. Then I want to take the safety save. Here you always have to make sure that you're actually interacting with the save point and not the proxy, because if you start talking to the proxy, it takes forever to stop the conversation. Anyways, last fight skip here. And here we do another save queue, because in this corridor there would be these barriers you can see right here. And usually Royce would start talking to you, you have to listen to him, and then he lowers one barrier, then you approach the next one, and so on. But by saving behind the first one, which you're usually not supposed to do, we actually can straight just jaunt through them, which saves another good chunk of time. Not enough, understandable. I mean, you can at least see some ears now. That's a step up, I guess. So yeah, that's that. All that's remaining is the final boss fight and then some outro shenanigans. So the final boss fight against Royce is pretty interesting, because turns out he also has a transistor like we have, with pretty much the same / similar abilities. So he also can start turn and start planning actions and stuff like that, and he has very similar skills that he can use, which makes it a very interesting fight. The idea that we have for this is that we will actually make use of our pet spawning ability we got very early on in the fight. And then, as it turns out, if your pet attacks the bomb you create, it somehow dupes the bomb explosions, which allows us to only use 1 bomb and thus have very little cooldown, but actually get 4 explosions out of it. And ideally that would one-shot him in every one of his 4 or 5 phases, 4 I think. But sometimes, depending on positioning and like other factors, he sometimes survives with like 35 to 5 HP, which can be very, very annoying, but we'll see. First I need to reload that anyways. So that's the pet, that's the bomb, that's spark, and that's shield and passive. So yeah, now you will see I have this bubble around me, which absorbs 1 attack every, I don't know how many seconds. Yeah, that one, that's because of my passive skill. But yeah, he always gets the first turn. Ideally, he would not get any one after this, because of our low cooldown, we should be able to mash it well enough as to where he shouldn't get another turn. Let's see. So that's our pet. That he will survive already. Nice. Good start. Yeah, we'll take some damage here. And now I need to like wait until I can summon another. Actually, I should not have done that. Interesting. I thought he would attack earlier. Let's see if this one works better. Yeah, this should... Never mind. He somehow interrupted the... What? Why can he turn during my turn? That's not fair. Yeah, also for some reason he takes forever to do his like actions. He destroyed my... Oh my god, this guy. Classic Royce. I have to wait and summon another one. And yes, it's very cool to have an RNG fight at the end of your run, as you might expect. Okay, I'll wait this attack out and then summon my pet, otherwise he might destroy it immediately, which obviously is not what I want. Okay, let's try this again. Wow. Wait, he destroyed my... Are you serious? Oh my god. That's so bad. Oh no. I will actually... If he damages me... Okay, never mind. Where's my pet? I'm on cooldown, but... there it is. Nice. Very interesting fight. Ideal. Anyways. Perfect. Yeah, now it's just gonna be like 1 more minute of story wrap up and then it will be time pretty much as soon as I tell you. Make it easy. But yeah, with Royce defeated, Red is now the sole owner of the Transistor and also pretty much the sole survivor, which is a less positive outcome. But because she has a Transistor, she basically has the ability to recreate the city however she likes it to be. Which is a pretty good trade-off, I guess. Let's see how that turns out. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll tell you once time will be. It's like 20 more seconds maybe. Hope all of you still enjoy the rest of Shots Fired. I will be in action again tomorrow noon-ish European time with Tomb Raider. Hope you have a very pleasant rest of your Saturday or start of your Sunday, depending on where you are. And yeah, it will be time once I reach the block, which is now. I don't see my time. I assume it was underestimate, but with that final fight maybe it wasn't. In that case, sorry, and otherwise not sorry. Thank you very much for having me, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the marathon.